Hey, welcome to the My Inner Struggle podcast. My name is Laura. We're talking everything lifestyle, personal growth, and business. I am here with Jen Csordas today. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
We went to school together for quite a while, and I've been following her adventures along on social media, and I've always been compelled to have a conversation with you about so many fucking things that we've both been doing for years. And I actually think we saw each other. It could have been a good decade ago. Do you remember?
Vaguely, yes.
Like at some event somewhere.
Yes.
So anyway, how are you?
I'm, all the things. That's how I feel. All the things.
Okay.
A little overwhelmed in this particular moment, not because of our conversation, just because of, life.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But otherwise, can't really complain.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I have been following your adventures on social media, and I was so intrigued, and we've both gone through a lot of different things, but I'm writing this book right now, and, basically it's about my life. And there are certain things that I felt compelled when I messaged you. I don't know how many weeks ago that was, that I was like, you really did have an impact on me in such a way that probably seemed so small to you and insignificant, most likely because you were just being you going through your day. And so like I kind of wanted to share that with you, but I don't have the words yet. So it'll come out as our conversation, progresses, obviously. And like we just said, I like being authentic and it to happen organically. It's kind of like a weird thing. Anyway, so this is interesting. So you have been on a journey as a mom, as a leader, as everything, as all the things, and it's been so inspiring. So I want to hear about this evolution of stuff. Like it's so fucking cool. Like you started, and I don't even know what the purpose is. I know that I don't know if you want to start at the beginning. You were writing a blog for a while as well. I've watched it's so weird to say this, but I've watched your kids grow up through social media, but it's so cool because like we knew each other before and it's a way to connect. And obviously if we didn't even converse during that time, but we're all like looking through the window on each other, but
a bizarre concept. General, but
yes,
also, another level of human connection, which I think is part of all the things. But first, let me say, I'm just really grateful that you reached out. I have had similar feelings watching you and your experience and kind of what you're up to now, what's going on, and really excited about your coaching journey and your podcast and just all the things. It actually, same thing, is inspiring me to kind of get back to some of that because it's been a lot of change in my household. And I think part of that, when you're going through so many different levels of change, some things have to go on the back burner.
Right. Yeah.
Say yes to one thing, you have to say no to something else. And
right. It's all sacrifice in some regard.
True. And it's like the thing that we know we should be doing, but like, we just don't have the bandwidth to do it in that particular time and space.
Right.
And so how do you move the pieces to kind of make it all fit? And that's one thing leads to the next. And it's kind of like organic conversation, right? Like my whole journey is just like, oh, no, there's this thing. Oh, no, try this thing. And it's just like, what am I doing? And I feel like a lot of times I get negative feedback about that, which can be a little disheartening. Like, what are you doing now? Like,
in what regard? Like you're taking it as it comes or the things that you're doing?
I think more like the things.
Okay.
It's like, oh, somebody said something recently, just like, I can't keep up with your jobs, it's like, and that's part of me taking it how I take it, right? Because we do that.
Well, you're sensitive to it for a reason, obviously, because it's not the norm, right? Most likely, right? But I can attest to that one, but who the fuck cares? Right. This is your story, not theirs.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the part that like my inner voice says that like, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, we have to look back on what we've done and feel a way about it. Right. Or have those regrets. And that's something that like, I'm like really wanting to always say yes, which is also problematic. We overdo it.
You know,
Right.
what's funny is I am kind of the opposite, I would say. I've spent a lot of my time until more recently, afraid. And so that's kind of how, like, when I started the blog and everything, it was like kind of me working through that and that evolution. And it wasn't until recently that I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Yes, let's do that. Yes. And it's so freeing, honestly, to just say yes. Yeah. So I get that. And, those people that I would say, it's safe to say, this already, it has more to do with them than it does you, because you're saying yes to the things and you're doing the things and they're not doing the things. Yeah.
And I know,
So.
that inner dialogue can go both ways, right? Because I'm human. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel all the feels, but I do want to I think one of the biggest things is setting an example too, for like my own kids and people that I come in contact with, that students, particularly, because I work with students, and knowing like you're in charge, right? Like if you want to do, or, take something on or try something new or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
like be empowered to do that.
Right.
Which is so much easier said than done, because
Yes.
every action, has a consequence. And so sometimes it might upset people, or it might cause you to lose a relationship, or something might not go the way you love it to go. But in the end, like, you're in charge.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. So one of the things I think that sticks out for me, it's like I'm like fangirl mode right now. So like, you were always very inspiring to me. You definitely held yourself, and we were talking about this before we started recording. You kind of moved here, you said, in middle school,
Yeah.
right? And then we went to high school together. I don't remember middle school so much. We probably weren't in the same class or something like that. But I definitely kept to myself for the most part in middle school. I can remember. But especially like in high school, just observing you, and you did all the things, like, you were the leader, you did all of that. And I wish that, like, I almost sometimes feel like I'm a late bloomer, because I'm like, I had that in me and I didn't tap into it then, not to be like a leader, but just to be a more confident and positive person. I think, we all have our journey and that's how we arrive. But you were always an inspiration through that, just looking. And I think I was a pretty quiet person, I would say. I definitely kept to myself, a lot, but you definitely impacted people without a doubt, And so I think, well, one, you should be proud of yourself. And two, actually, I don't have a two yet. It'll come to me. But so tell me about some of your journey that you're willing to share.
All right. So, I don't even know where to start. I feel like I kind of, and this analogy has been presented before. I don't know how much you've heard or read about Elizabeth Gilbert, or heard any of her talking. She wrote several books, but Practical Magic kind of came up, or actually I might be getting the name of that wrong. So
Okay.
she did a Super Soul Sunday with Oprah, and she had this talk, right? And my friend sent me the talk to listen to, because it's like pre-podcast, right? So it was
right.
like her on stage recorded by somebody. And she was talking about like how you have to have one passion, right? And you're only going to be successful as a writer if you focus on writing 100%, like blinders on, right? And so she left this talk she had given, and somebody had emailed her and said, hey, like, I feel like shit now based on your talk, because I do all the things and I haven't, found one particular track, because I find that I like to learn new things, and all these thoughts were coming up for her.
Right.
Basically like, no, I debunked this. Like, I don't agree. And so Elizabeth, I was thinking about it, and she's like, you know what? It's kind of like a hummingbird, where you're like going from thing to thing and pollinating and kind of collecting skills and then giving them to someone else. And it's very like organic that way. And my friend had sent me this. I was struggling at the time, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm doing this, now I'm doing this.
How long ago was this? Like 10 years?
It was in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just moved back to Pennsylvania after living in West Virginia for almost 12 years. That was supposed to be a 2-year stay, and we this
Mm-hmm.
um, which I love, by the way. And I miss my West Virginia friends and that are family so much every day. But she was one of them. My West Virginia sisters sent me this message and just said, "You're the hummingbird friend." And I'm like folding laundry, crying hysterical, listening to this and thinking about what she said. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. So like I then really embraced that identity. Like it's okay. Cause I've always, I went to school for in my undergrad in psychology and English. I've always wanted to be a writer. I don't know that I feel that I'm a writer because I haven't made
Written
in a while.
lately?
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. It doesn't make you not a writer. You know that.
I do know that, but my
Yeah.
critic is like, you know what? Like you stopped, and I stopped for good reason because like life got crazy, and I just didn't have the time for that, or I didn't choose to spend my time doing that in that moment. But really looking into, and I've been teaching and pulled into school systems and mental health and yoga and mindfulness and counseling and coaching, and like it's just like the next thing that presents itself. I'm like, yeah, I want to know more about that, and I want to know how
Mm-hmm.
I can like use that and build my skills so that I can share with others and have an impact, make an impact, because connection is so important, and sometimes I feel like we miss that.
Right. Well,
But
do you like, as you say it, do you believe it now? Like that it's okay.
oh
All of the things that you're talking about, they all relate to each other too.
yeah.
So it's not like you're, doing this and then deep sea fishing or, like they all relate to each other, but you're truly an entrepreneur. So because you're open to all of these other things, and that's what we do. And that's what you've always been, really. I mean, think about it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because you're trying and like tasting all these things from all these different places, but that's what makes us who we are. And I don't know, like I think that I just had this like flashback. Do you remember our I can't even remember what the name of the class was, but with Miss Matil, right? Like
oh
we did all those like and going to the Geraldine R. Dodge like poetry festival and doing like all of that stuff. That was so fucking cool. But we didn't get to be like writers yet because we hadn't experienced all the things yet, right?
right.
But I truly believe, and it's kind of like some soul connection. Like you know it in your soul. This is how you just need to get it out at some point, right?
Yes, it is
Yes.
really funny. I just signed up for a writing in October, and I was
Oh,
like,
how cool.
fourth. Do I go?
We should meet up at one. That would be so
You know what?
fun.
I'm gonna send you the information for this one.
Okay, cool.
It's close to you too, so it's like midway between us, I think.
Okay.
And I've been like back and forth. And I'm like, do I do this? Like, again, all the things just keeps coming up. That's probably the title of my something. But I'm like, you know what? No, I have to make it a point, because everything, up till now that I've made happen, it's just like that decision to finally say like, yes, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Versus like, I could, I should, I would, I want to. It's like all of those. No, just the yes for me. In fact, my mom said to me the other day, I was struggling trying to recover this chair. And I was like, I don't understand how to do this. I've never reupholstered anything with my nail gun or my staple gun, like just going at it. And I text her, I'm like, I can't finish this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm stuck. And she's like, you've never started something you didn't finish. I'm like, well, that's exactly true. But years maybe go by, but back to it, it made me think about that. Just like starting something again.
I'm surprised that was your first reupholster job, though, honestly.
Of a chair.
You're crafty.
I've done benches. I've done
Okay.
like chair cushions. This is a whole mama chair.
Okay. Let me ask you a question based on that. Are you the type of person that I think I already know the answer as I'm thinking about this. Are you the type of person that will just like jump in and be like, I can do that. I'll figure it out. Yeah, me too. And yes, you start projects and then you're like, oh shit, like this is like not going well. Yes, yeah. But that's good that you have the support of your mom like that, obviously. Someone backing you up to, remind you. So did you finish the chair or is it?
I did, and it's in
Oh,
my
okay.
office. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And actually, funny story. Maybe I shouldn't share this.
No, it's all right.
I got the motivation to finish the chair because I was me and my daughter, one of my girls, I have 4 kids, by the way. I mean, I know you know that, but just in saying. So my 15-year-old daughter, we were building a desk for her room. And in the middle of building the desk, I had this moment of like, oh my gosh, did I leave the glue gun plugged in at my office at school?
Oh no.
I was like, I can't just go to school for like, a hot minute. I have to, no pun intended, I have to like have a purpose. So I finished that chair that I've been putting off for weeks in like 2 hours so that I could
Oh,
get
so you could bring it to school to check on the glue gun. That's good motivation. Whatever works, right?
right. I never did a project that I had no idea what I was doing so fast.
Was the glue gun plugged in?
It was not.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Now the school can like lower your clearance a little bit or something. I've definitely done some, yeah. They should have automatic like shut off things on those things. I wonder
Yeah,
if they do.
they
Like the
might.
coffee pot, or your curling iron. I would hope that they do. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
Is it cordless?
no.
Okay. I have it's cordless, but like you can take it and freely glue with it and then you put it back on the base so that it can keep
Ah,
warm.
that's
Pretty cool. Yeah. I've had it for probably 12 years, I would say 15, actually maybe longer than I've had kids. Now that I think about it, I'm not really sure.
that's like my toaster. It's like so old. My kids get like they're emotionally attached to it for some weird
The
reason.
toaster?
Yeah,
I'm surprised it's still alive.
doesn't work really well. I mean, you have to touch
Oh,
it 8 times, but they won't let us get rid of it because they're like, "You've had it since you and Dad lived in an apartment before you were married." I'm like, "Who cares? It's a toaster."
that's really funny. So okay, so let's talk about a little bit. Well, actually, we keep interrupting your story too, but okay, so you're evolving through the years. You actually just finished a degree, did you not?
I did. I went back for my second master's degree in
Mm-hmm.
the master's of school counseling that I just finished in May. And I'm currently in another program because I just can't stop myself
Mm-hmm.
for my expressive arts therapy certification. Because art to me is like essential to just life.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding that in coaching and counseling. Well, I should back up a little. When looking and getting my certifications for life and health coaching, I went for a master's level after that and found there's such a fine line, as you could probably
Yes.
guess,
Yeah.
between counseling and coaching. Right. And so I'm like, I feel like ethically this line is going to be crossed and I want to be prepared. And so I decided to go back to school for a counseling degree. I started in a Master of Art Therapy program, and the program was just not what I was hoping for. And so I ended up switching gears to school counseling and deciding to kind of get that art component later because I use art and I want to be responsible with understanding really the impact of using certain materials with certain populations and like what that opens up for people.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that, especially in a school setting, there's very short amounts of time that you're working with students, and allowing, time for that sharing and processing, but not sending them back to class or out into the world without having the proper amount of time to do the activity so that it's bringing up stuff where they have no support.
Right. So in that capacity, so when you're seeing, say, a student, right, and they're having some, issues that they need to talk through, say they came to you and they have a certain amount of time or whatever, are you finding, or have you been able to incorporate that now? I'm thinking you were probably off for the summer. So obviously you're probably using these things along the way. They're tools, right? During that. So one thing, so my daughter sees a therapist that is not an art therapist, but kind of like similar to you, I would say, that you were like, this is my thing. I do it. So they work on projects. And my daughter is, she's very into art. She's going to college for art. And, I had asked her, I was like, does it really help you get the conversation started? And she's like, yes, it's so weird because you're busy doing something. So having that tool in your pocket as a school counselor, I'm sure that really, it's almost like an icebreaker, right? Essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's valuable. Have you been able to utilize that thus far, like in your practice?
So I even have, and this got a lot of conversation on Meet the Teacher Night. I just have like a roll out coloring sheet, like that covers the whole table, and it kind of looks like a table runner, but it just sits there with markers in the center. And even just in the few moments that kids and parents were popping in to say hello, they were using it and talking
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is such a great idea. But even in that, like, especially with kids, once we're doing something with our hands and we're not having to make eye contact, because old beliefs, like, we don't need to look at you to listen to you. Okay. So
Right.
you don't need to make eye contact to prove that they're respecting and listening to you. It's just not
Right.
a thing. But then they are really more comfortable to kind of open up and talk a little bit about whatever. So I definitely think it's helpful for adults too. I mean, I had lunch with a colleague and it's like, oh, I want to color on this. Like, yeah, it's fun and it kind of gets things moving a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, so it's a little less awkward.
Well, and I'm sure, well, and I'd say I don't know the mechanics of this necessarily, but it triggers certain parts of your brain, right? That are, you know more about this than I do, clearly. Like, so explain that to me.
Well, and in what I learned from just the short time I was in the art therapy program was so impactful to me that, like, I would see other people sometimes using art because, hey, there's Pinterest. I mean, people are sharing stuff on TikTok. Like, you can get any idea, right, from the internet and be like, oh, I'm going to do this. It looks cool. But without knowing, like, I think it's more important to think about the damage you can do
Mm-hmm.
than really about how it's helping. For example, if we were going to have a session and, like, say we were focusing on anxiety, right? Um, there's certain materials I wouldn't want to use for someone who's experiencing anxiety,
Like what?
like
Let me
water.
write this down.
Yeah,
Like water?
watercolor, for example.
Okay.
Okay, think about watercolor spreads,
Mm-hmm.
right? It also, doesn't mix as well or stay put, or, it kind of is like its own entity.
Right.
So if you're already experiencing emotions that are out of your control, giving you material that's harder to control isn't really going to help you.
Makes sense.
And if you don't know that, like, you might be like, oh, let's do this. I have these little, the Crayola watercolor palette. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sounds great in theory, but and then what happens is sometimes those emotions or the anxiety aren't really happening in the moment. It's when you stop the project and send the kid back to class, and then they're like, what's going on? All these behaviors are happening or whatever. Well, we opened up some stuff we didn't have time to put a container around to
Okay.
finish. So maybe things like collage or, paper, colored pencil, things that are more or less likely to spread, more
Okay.
controlled.
So like something that you can kind of remain in control of, more
Right.
or less, right? That's interesting. I never would have thought about that. That
I
makes
did.
sense.
I just thought, like, this is a cool thing to do. I enjoy it. Let me share it with someone else. So that's where, like, the responsibility and, like, the ethical piece come in for me, that it's like, do I want to go back to school again right now after I just got done with being in school? No, not really. But I feel like I almost have a responsibility to do that so that I'm not doing something that is going to have any negative impact on somebody. Like, that's not my intention.
So now you're starting the art piece
Yeah.
basically for that. So what will that degree be? Like that is a what?
Actually, a certification. So it's
Okay.
less credits than another master's. So it's like, because you have a master's in counseling, you can get certifications in specialties.
Mhm.
A way to look at it. So the expressive arts is a little different than art therapy. It allows me, or will allow me, to also use other art like music, dance. I already have a lot of movement in things that I do because of the yoga background.
Mhm.
Which, again, when I go down a rabbit hole, man, like, I'm going down.
Yeah.
I couldn't just get my, like, 200-hour yoga teacher certification. I was like, I got to go for the 500-hour. I got to go for kids and prenatal and trauma informed and sports management, like, all the things, because of somebody, if there's a pregnant practitioner in my class, I want to be able to, teach
To
with,
help them. Yeah.
right, the correct movements and do no harm. So I guess that, as I'm saying this, it's really important for me to have interactions that promote wellness, like whole body wellness, and bring light to it rather than any kind of harm. But not to say hard conversations leave people feeling all happy inside, but that's a whole nother game.
Well, you're just tapping into it. So it was kind of fun. Well, yeah. I have like 14 things that I want to say right now. So it's funny. So all right. So when does school start?
Monday, tomorrow.
All right. So let's go through the things. So Jen, you are a mom of 4 kids. How old are your kids?
So my oldest just went to college last week.
Okay, we're doing that in a week, actually. Yes, go on.
Going out to you. It's I can't even explain it. You think you're mentally prepared, you think you're emotionally prepared. You know it's coming. It's not a surprise. But yet when I like walked away from her in her dorm room, I feel like just something broke. And I literally cried the entire 3-hour drive home. Like sobbing to the point my dad called to check on me and I was like hitting my husband to talk because I'm like
Aww.
it's like not the connection, it was just me.
I don't know. I'm an emotional person anyway, so I don't know, maybe I'll have like the opposite effect. Although I have to say, so she's not going too far. She'll be about an hour away, which is cool, but she's going to stay there, which I'm very excited for her because I think watching your kids grow is like one of the greatest of course it's joyful and everything, but like just watching them evolve is on a psychology aspect. It's like, it's very cool. Like for lack of anything better to say, watching them evolve and grow. And she has come out of her shell so much in the last 6 months. You from the time that they're little, we were just reminiscing about this. I'm like, you were always the one that would like never participate at the birthday party until it was like 20 minutes before the birthday party ended. And then you were mad when it was over because you spent the entire time like hanging on to my leg, and she was laughing and everything. And, but she has come out of her shell so much, and it's so beautiful to watch her blossom as a young woman, as a person. And she has such a good head on her shoulders. And I wish that I had the knowledge that she has now, that when I was her age, like unbelievable. And I don't even know if that's because of the time that we live in, if it's because of who I am as a mom, if it's, because my mom was obviously different than I am, so, but it's crazy to like think about. And she's so smart, like, gosh, like and so you think about, you observe all these things about each one of your kids, and they're special in their own way. And now I feel like some cliche walking around. I blogged about this not that long ago, but like, when your kids are little and, one's having a temper tantrum on the grocery store floor and another one's like throwing all the shit in the cart, and you're like, I want to run away. And then the lady, now probably our age, right? At the time is like, oh, just cherish it. And you're like, fuck you. Like, I'm having a moment here, like this is like ridiculous.
So real.
But now I'm that lady. I've literally done this like a few times. I was at the farmer's market and there's this adorable little girl, and she reminded me so much of my oldest at the time. And I like stopped to talk to her, and my daughter's like, my youngest one, she's looking at me and she's like, what are you doing? Like, this is like embarrassing. And I'm like, but she's so cute. And the mom was just like, oh, and I'm like, and I literally said the same thing. And I'm like, I was where you are like 15 years ago. And here I am like oogling over your little girl and how adorable that is. And it like, ugh. And what's funny is, and I know that you'll appreciate this, but, actually you out of all people would appreciate this, because I think that we align in many ways, is that when you are approaching midlife, how much changes in your life and your perspective, right? And turning like 40 was like, fuck, this is awesome. I am like in the best place I've ever been in my life. And I think it's because you shed all that bullshit that you don't care about anymore, Yeah.
The authenticity piece, I think, really, really shines through, because you're realizing time is like a fleeting thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not in a scary way, but in a way of like, okay, what do I actually want to do with my time?
Right.
Like, who do I actually want to be with? What do I actually want to do as my impact? What's important? And, oftentimes those opinions of others are just preventing us from doing the actual things we want to do.
Right.
Instead, it's kind of like, yeah, I hit 40 and I was like, this is, I don't really care anymore. I mean, that my inner critic sometimes comes up, and that's something I work on in my own therapy, is like, okay, it doesn't really matter, and people aren't paying attention as much as you think they are, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. They're not.
Right. They're
Nope.
busy with their own shit, right? They're not
Right.
about what you're doing. And if they do comment and it's negative, like you said, it's more to do with how they're, taking that on for themselves, what's coming up for them
Right.
versus.
Well, you're like holding up a mirror. So they're like, I'm not doing anything with my, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't remember. Do you get my newsletters or not?
No, I need to.
Okay. All right. So it's just funny because like there's a lot of like, we'll talk about those certain things because as you said, when you opened, it's always a reflection of them really. And the people that are so critical are pissed because they're not strong enough or capable enough, or not that they're not, but they don't believe that they are
Right.
to make that change. And some people, are limited, but you have to there's so much work involved, so
It never ends, the work.
it's hard, right?
Thing is work. And if it's not like, if you're not feeling that component of it, or I don't think it's really, I mean, and this might just be my personal experience, but right, if I'm not feeling that element of like, ooh, this is hard, like maybe it's not really the thing at the time, if that makes sense. Like,
that's interesting
because, and that's my own trauma, truly speaking. That's like, everything has to be
if
hard.
it's not a challenge for you. Maybe it's not. That's interesting. Ooh, we should dig on that. Like, what is
yeah, that comes up, and it's, what does that say about me and what I've been through? But it is a truth of mine that I don't necessarily believe that it's not worth it, but my inner systems are like, wait a second, like
it should be more difficult
crazy
than that.
going on. It makes me pause. It's a meaning for pause.
Is that when like your inner like cynic comes out a little bit?
Yeah, likely, because if it's too easy, then I'm wondering like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, this doesn't.
Rather than what am I doing right, or how is this? Because it's kind of like writing, right? Like you get in the flow, and I don't think that when I'm in the flow, I think like I'm in the flow. Like it's just pouring out of me, and it just it feels like a natural way to process. But like other things, I feel like I just like the challenge so much because it kind of allows me to be like, okay, I can do hard things, and gives me almost like the confidence to try the next hard thing. Because it's like, if you've survived all these things and you've already done them, what else can I do?
Right. Well, that's like your sense of accomplishment, right? Because it was hard, right? But you have to remember that you're worthy of the lesser things too, right? Like the things that come easy. So it's interesting because lately I've been kind of, I think I'm on the precipice of like a spiritual awakening right now. I just discovered. And I wrote a blog like last week, and this week's blog were really more spiritual than anything. And I had to like cut this week because I don't like to make it too long for like next week. And essentially it's kind of the same thing, but I've been taking classes at the local pole dance studio, which has, it triggers things in certain people or whatever, but there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
And so there was like some really great like meditation classes and stuff like that. And there was this exercise that we did, and I kind of wrote about it a little bit in the blog, but it was basically like drawing like a circle. And you've probably done this exercise before. Usually in my practice, I use the wheel of life, but I think I might kind of change it a little bit because this makes more sense to me. And I think it would make more sense to other people too. But drawing a circle and then like a circle inside. So like a donut basically. Right. And going through all of the different elements of your life and putting them either in the fast lane or the slow lane, right? So like where you're stuck in the middle, right. Kind of, right? And then the fast lane where it's like moving really fast. And then like whatever falls in that in between spot is like your flow state. And going through this exercise, and I had all of these elements of my life, and so many went into that flow state. And I was like, this is why it feels so good, because it's all aligning right now. And I've never really felt that way in my life before. And so nothing's perfect, clearly, but like, it's all going in the right direction. So one of those things, and this is going to relate back to what you were saying, is that I decided it was probably 6 months ago that I was like, I'm whatever abundance is coming to me because, 2024 was the year of abundance. That's what I named it in, at the beginning of the year, right? So whatever abundance is coming to me, whatever is flowing to me, and no matter how good it gets, I'm not going to sit here and wait for the other shoe to drop.
Mm. That's tough.
That's been my practice
before, right? Like you have that, it's almost like just that pattern. If you've been there where it's like everything's going really well and then, right? And then
right,
like belief of, well, things come in threes or like that saying, whatever. So then you're like,
right,
okay, well, that was one really shitty thing. Where are the other two? So you're kind
right.
of like on
So
guard.
you're looking for it, but we don't want to affirm the
Yes.
shitty things.
You're attracting it. That's your
Yeah.
vibration is saying like, bring me two more shitty things. And then when they happen,
Right.
it's like, I knew it was going to happen. You're confirmed in your belief. And so it continues.
Right.
That pattern.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So what do you think you want to be when you grow up?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I still don't know.
Lady, I went, what year was this? I guess like 2 Januaries ago. I went to Kenya for 3 as part of the Global Alliance for Africa's Therapeutic Arts Program. And so there was this lady, Linda. Her name is Linda. And she's like in charge of all the people, right? So Linda's job was very stressful. And Linda had to like gather everyone and make sure no one got eaten on the safari. And like,
it's an important job.
And she was just, but had a lot on her plate, right? Managing people's allergies on the trip, the meals, the everything. But honestly, like in my head, I was like, I want to be Linda when I grow up. And I had that literal sentence in my head. I'm like, told her, like, you're my hero. Like her presence. She just has just like a person that you want to be around. And even though she's dealing with so much high stress and like logistics and problem solving and like all the things that, can make you just not be kind and warm and loving. That's the stress that you're under.
Jade you, yes.
Yeah, she met it so beautifully and was just such, just like a light. And also the fact, her job, she gets to go to Africa 1 million times a year, but she just was just this person. And I think the essence of Linda is what I want to be when I grow up.
That's cool.
Maybe not like an exact, profession or, cause I think even with this, we joke like, now I'm a school counselor, like officially, right. The last couple of years, but how long will Jen stay a school counselor?
Who knows? That's okay.
Because I'm like, you mentioned it. I like to work for myself. I like to be my own boss. I'm very creative. I don't like to feel stuck.
Right.
So the job does allow for a lot of creativity, which I think is one of the reasons it really resonates with me is like, and it's different every day, right?
Right.
Because different problems happen, different kids you're going to see, different teachers need support, like that changes. But in terms of that, it's like, I, eventually see like private practice things for myself and finally, writing that book I say every year I'm going to write. And that's where I'm at.
That's cool. I love that. But I think in that sense too, and I'm not saying this in any judgment at all. Like, yeah, I don't think that you're going to stay where you are long because you obviously, you're going back to school tomorrow again, right? So like you need that constant change, basically. Like you crave it. And I'm the same way. So I get it feels good to connect with somebody that feels the same way because it's kind of a lonely space to be in.
Yeah.
And even just most recently, like I'm coaching and I just launched like a monthly membership service and stuff like that. And so there's always like the next that's evolving. It's evolving. Yep. And I'm working just by chance, you have all these conversations and like with coaching, with people and it takes them a little while to kind of be ready to get on board, right? but the same goes for like business consulting. So I do consulting for small business, and I had these conversations for like a good few months or whatever. And then all of a sudden the same week, like three projects landed in my lap. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized at the end of last week, and I was like, I haven't had any time to do my own stuff,
Yeah.
and so it's a big adjustment, but I don't think that at this point, and I think once you get a taste of that, like on your own, like I don't think I could ever work for anybody again because I can't fit into a box anymore. It's like I've grown like too much that I can't like
Yeah.
I can't do it, and it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I completely get that. And I think that when I start to feel too boxed in, I can see a shift in what happens. And also I think a lot of that too is in boxed in thinking. So, I know there's certain ways you have to do things. And all my jobs recently, at least in the last, I don't know, since 2016, have landed me in education.
Mm-hmm.
So whether, I mean, I've been adjuncting at, some local community colleges, teaching yoga and mindfulness. I've been in the schools for social work positions, now school counseling. Like and teaching mindfulness in elementary level schools with a couple different nonprofits. It just keeps bringing me back there. So I feel like there is some work that's not finished that I'm supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be doing in that facet. And that's why that the current is that way. But a lot of times, things, obviously there's policies, there's things that just are. And sometimes like my inner self is like, that why do we have to do it that way? Like that doesn't make sense, or that's not best for kids or whatever. And so when it starts to get like that, I keep doing this, like that friction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm out. Right.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, and it's not like a lack of drive to change the policy or whatever. It's just, you reach a point where you're like, this is, we're hitting a wall.
Right. There's nothing else that you can do to change that exactly, but you want to. I could honestly see you like mentoring other school counselors, having, like I don't know how you feel. Like I don't mind. I need routine to stay on track for myself.
Yeah.
But I don't like routine because I like being a free spirit.
It makes
So
so much sense to me. You don't even know. It's like,
but like the structure helps me get more things done. But I also want to be able to walk out my door at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go take a walk in the woods. It's like, so those things, I want the ability to do that. Not necessarily that I'm going to, but I want to know that I can change my mind at a moment's notice. And it doesn't, obviously you have appointments and things like that. So that's one thing, but punching a clock is like not I don't need to go to the same place every day. And that's okay.
Freedom earlier, like hitting your 40s and like having that like sense of freedom, and that's similar, right? Maybe you won't do it, but you have the freedom to choose to do it.
Right. It's like, you can't tell me what to do, but yeah.
Yeah. Because there's an element of me that I do love teaching, because I think that's the whole purpose of me gathering my skills. And I can pinpoint the exact moment that like where I felt like I was being led to teach. And that's come in many forms, like teach yoga, teach mindfulness, teach others, how to regulate, talk about emotions, and teach toolbox skills for people to be successful in their own struggles. Right. But like not a traditional classroom teacher, but I had gone to a yoga retreat, Wanderlust in West Virginia. And it was, at the time, it was like a really, like financially, I should not have gone on it. It was a very big struggle to like make that happen. But for some reason I felt very like, I need to be here. I can't explain it. I need to go. So my husband's always been supportive with all of
I still want to ask you about that. Yeah, go on.
With all of my changes. I mean, he may not always love them, but he knows that like, this is who I am. Like, this isn't going to change because you don't want another, I don't know, bill for courses. Whatever it is. Like, it's happening.
I'll figure it out.
Right, get on board. But I had picked up a mala, and it was like my first one because I wanted a real one. I was like, and this is before I was a yoga teacher. I just enjoyed yoga and was just like dabbling in it. Right. And I picked it up, and it was called The Great Teacher. It was like the one that I was attracted to. And I just felt it. Like, I just felt like a physiological response in my body to like holding it, to reading what the little thing said about the different beads that were on it and what they meant and all this. And it was very new to me. And I'm like, okay. And it says inspire around like the silver ring between the beads. And it was ridiculously expensive. And I don't even know that I shared that with Alex at the time. Like, I have to have this. I can't explain it. And I think from that moment, I just kept reframing the things I was doing and like, how can these be tools to teach versus experiences? And I think I feel that way even with travel and things. Like, I want to see these places because I think they're the best teacher that I have ever had. And I've had some really stellar teachers, but it just changes your perspective on how you view the world, how you see other people, connection, like our space in it, and how small we are. Really, like we can make a big impact, but we are so insignificant, really, if you think about the vastness of any place you travel to.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that box comes to mind. Like, how do we get out of the box?
Right. Yeah. It's spread your wings. You need to spread out.
Yeah.
Where is your mala now?
In my jewelry chest. I definitely have it and wear it and kind of just use it as a fidget a lot of times because I just feel like it has a special essence in it. I've collected a lot more along the way, but that one is one that is just like, and from that, we started to learn about some diagnoses with two of my kids. And it just became really difficult for me to be the kind of mom I wanted to be. I didn't understand things that they were going through. I didn't know how to parent. Again, this is my first time on earth, right? Like it's everybody's first time on earth. So I wasn't born knowing how to parent, with kids who have autism and mood disorders and anxiety and ADHD. And like, I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Right. But like seeking learning to help was the driver. So yoga was my way of like, I don't know how to regulate because these kids are like, ah! Right. And it's more than just the normal kid energy because there's stuff going on that they don't understand, that I don't understand. And now we're together all day because at the time I was staying at home with them, running my own business, but I was with them from sun up to sundown, right? 4 kids, 5 and under is a lot of kids to be with all day when you don't feel like you have this support and the tools. And so yoga was my way of like, okay, I learned how to regulate myself. Then I wanted to learn how I can appropriately and effectively transfer those skills so that they can learn to regulate themselves so that we can, and then how can we co-regulate, right? And what does that look like and how it's so fun. It's different for every single child. So
yes.
to learn one way.
Yes. That's for sure.
So, right? Like, what is that? That's a madness no one talks about or tells you about, right? You cannot be the same parent for every child.
No, not at all. It's so weird, right? Like, because, well, and then you think about it, you have siblings, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we all grew up in the same household, yet we all got different things out of it too. And then you think about your own kids and you're like, oh yeah, they're totally different. Totally different.
That's a whole other conversation of like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. How that can happen. Same DNA, same parents, same environment, completely different.
But if you think about it, so like my environment, like we were all like you're all in the same household, but we're definitely treated differently, like, so yeah. So it's like I'm just coming up with this now. Like, yeah. I mean, we were all raised differently too, even though we did have the same 2 parents because we are different than the person next to us. Yeah, that's crazy. This is profound for a Sunday morning.
Right? I didn't even finish my coffee. So
I know mine's cold, but it's all right. So what is your next, do you have your next adventure planned as well? Or no, not yet?
So we do have some talk of the next adventures. We actually were trying to sit down and like schedule the whole year out with dates and stuff. But as you know and have seen, Jackie and I take an annual trip to somewhere. So we're working on dates for that. It's definitely, we always look for a place that most people don't typically visit.
Yeah.
But really exciting. My oldest daughter, which I also never answered your question. She's almost 19, but I have a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
So my oldest applied for a fellowship in Italy at the end of the school year. So she'll be going to Italy for 3 weeks to visit law firms. She wants to be a lawyer. So she got into this fellowship. And so I'm like, well, if she's in Italy, I obviously have to go see her in Italy. Hello. So we're going to take a trip. Actually, I'll see her in Italy, and we're going to go to Croatia for a week. That one we know is planned. So that's kind of exciting.
The whole family or
Just her and I.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So she's over there, and she's a big traveler, or wants to be as well. I do have other travel bugs in my unit, but not everybody loves that.
Yes.
And we have some more homebody routine
I've
goals as
got some
well.
of each too. Yeah.
So it makes travel interesting. But yeah, I'm always looking for somewhere to go and visit and see what's happening.
I'm thinking about taking a trip on Thanksgiving, actually. Where should I go? Where could I go? Like, I can't, like, so it has to be like within reason. So it has to be a long weekend. Yeah.
That's a big thing. Oh my gosh. I have to think on that one. There's
Yeah.
a good company I'll hook you up with that has a lot of tours. And what I love about them is that they really give back to the community that's directly impacted by the tourism of the tour. So we visited places where it's like women who've been survivors of human trafficking are the ones leading a class to teach you to make like a local cuisine. So it has a lot of humanity in what they do, and they use a lot of local people to really show you the culture of where you are, but also to sustain the economy for, not big business, but for local families and things. So it's really cool. So there's a plethora of options. And did you know that our flight to Morocco is only 5 hours? So like, I don't understand that, but
Wait, your flight to where?
Morocco.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I was prepared for like 10 hours. I don't understand what happened.
That's weird. Okay. All right. Interesting.
Well, that might have been, yeah, with time changes, but I swear we were on the plane very short. I couldn't even write my paper that I thought I was going to write. So, fun fact.
Well, okay. Well, so let me ask if there was one piece of wisdom or mantra or anything like that you would want to share with our viewers, what would it be?
So I think to keep moving forward. And I think the forward is really important because, we could always just keep moving. But if we're not aware really of our direction or our purpose or and not to say you have to have it figured out, because I certainly don't. I mean, the next thing could present itself tomorrow and I could be like, pivot. But
Yeah.
my direction is always forward, right? We can't control what's happened. The past is in the past and we can learn from it. But if we're focused on moving forward, who knows what is out there to await us, and kind of focusing on what you want to see more of. Right. So if we're just to your point too, like, abundance, I'm going to manifest that. I'm going to focus on the good because the brain, moves in the direction of its focus. That's proven. So the more we think about something, the more that thing appears, and, moving forward with your focus in mind.
Good. I like it. We're going to have like more conversations because we didn't even scratch the surface.
I agree. I'm like,
but
City over here, but I have so many things I want to ask you and I didn't get a chance. So we're definitely revisit.
Well, go ahead. Ask me one.
So what have you found to be the most challenging thing for you stepping out on your own?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I've had to try and combat is being alone all the time. So, my path is different. I don't have a partner, not necessarily that you have to have a partner, but I think you can appreciate the fact that being an entrepreneur can be kind of a lonely space to begin with. Yeah. And so, that's been probably the most difficult, is not having people to bounce ideas off of. That part. Building, a business is difficult in itself, right? Like all the different elements of your business. And then having enough hours in the day to get all of those things done. But those all can be like adjusted. But I think the parts that were the most difficult, I would say, in the last year was just not having anyone to share ideas with or a safe space to bounce ideas off of. So that's been difficult. But as I've been growing as a person, as time has, passed and I've been networking and meeting more people, I'm finally finding my tribe, which is really cool because that was a tough time. But I also believe that you're also left alone in those times. And that's when the most growth happens, even though it was like, fuck, I wish that I had somebody because, your friends don't get it all the time.
Yeah.
That you're up at midnight and you're like, oh my God, I can make this change to this, or I'm writing this, or I'm doing this, or I'm creating this curriculum or material or whatever. And they don't get it. They're like, go to bed. Like, what are you doing? Like, so I think that was the hardest part for me in particular. And partly too, because of my own growth of, I lost a lot of relationships in the last, when I left my last job, I lost a lot of friendships and stuff like that. And so again, being alone really forces you to depend on yourself. And I hated that when people would say that to me, and they'd be like, well, the only person that you can depend on is yourself. And I'm like, screw you. Like, I hate that phrase, but it's kind of true in a way. No matter what, you have Alex, your husband is supportive, like he supports you, but ultimately what you're doing is up to you. No one else is going to do it for you, right? So
he doesn't get it. He supports you, but he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand all the changes. He changes jobs, but not his, like he's like Elizabeth Gilbert. He's on that blinders track. Like, this
right.
is what I
right.
spend all my energy on. So it's a foreign concept to be like, well, yeah.
Where you're like, oh, like there's that. Yes, exactly. And I think my ex-husband was probably in the similar, he was just much more safe in that regard. Like he definitely didn't get it, but he'd be like, you go ahead, you do your thing or whatever, but, and it all evolves, the way it's supposed to, really. And I've arrived like here, but I would say, yeah, that was probably the most difficult part, is just the solopreneur part, I would say. Yeah. But that's changing, because like even this conversation, this makes me feel less alone, quite honestly, because there's somebody else that gets it. But I had met this woman through some networking, and we had like a walking meeting. Like, this is like probably the beginning of the summer, and we were talking about this, and then she turns to me and she's like, where are the rest of us? Like, where are we? Like, because and she was kind of in the same way. And she has this incredible consultancy for business, and she's thought leadership, and she's wonderful, and she has like all these like things and she struggles with the same thing. And for me, it was kind of like, oh, okay, I thought I was the only one that felt this way. So that was pretty neat. And the more people I meet, the better I feel, that, yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us are working. Like we're so, dedicated to the work and know how important it is. So when we get into that flow state or whatever, it's like all consuming. And I know sometimes for me, like, you kind of forget that there's like other things you have to do because you really genuinely enjoy doing the thing.
Right. Well, and I do. And when that hobby turned like business, it was really hard to shut it off. It's still kind of hard. I've gotten much, much better at it, but it was still kind of hard to shut it off. Case in point, last night I'm driving around at 10 o'clock putting signs up. Like, who else is doing this? I tried to get Raj to come with me, but he's like, dude, I'm hanging out. Like, this is not. But yeah. So. But anyway, it was so good to talk to you, and we definitely need to continue the conversation. This is my longest recorded podcast, so and we have so much more to talk about. And next time, let's talk about writing a little bit, because I'm actually finishing my book right now, and so it's like it's been a decade, well, almost a decade of like thoughts, basically. So honestly, if if I had any advice, like if you haven't started yet, I would say start at the beginning because I didn't. And it's been like the organization has been the hardest part of the, making it flow and stuff like that. So when you sit down, I would just start at the beginning. Just do that.
I feel like I have too many ideas and it's hard for me. Well, obviously, hello. It's hard for me to pick one.
It's okay. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I can't wait until we can talk again.
Yes.
And do you have anything that you want to send people to? I know you were blogged for a while. I don't know if you want to.
Getting back to my blogs.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually working on a Substack account and kind of going that route.
Okay. I don't know what Substack is. What is Substack?
I'll have to show you. It's just another kind of platform, but you can do a lot of the same things you can do with like Wix or I think WordPress or all these different.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm working on that, but my goal is to kind of get enough material, as you know, so that I'm not feeling the pressure of like, I have to write right now. I just am filing things so that, I can be consistent with content, but not overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a long game. I'm playing the long game right now.
Yeah. I have some tips and tricks for you, maybe actually. Yeah. That you can build into your day, I think helps because the amount of content, obviously social media is the name of the game in a lot of aspects about putting your content out there. But having enough that's interesting and keeps the flow going so that people continue to come back and read, what you're writing and all of that is tricky without a doubt. And as a mom of 4 kids and, countless activities along with all of that other stuff that you do for yourself too, it's tricky. So, but I definitely have some things that I could share with you.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that because I think not necessarily related to this, but it's hard because there's so many different facets of what I've done that it's like, how do you find a niche that yes, they all are in the same realm, but they're not all the same. People you're looking, you know what I mean? That's kind of where and again, it's my own limitation I'm putting on things and maybe an excuse to prevent me from getting started.
I have a kind of an unpopular opinion on finding the niche too, is that I don't know that you have to, I don't think that you should be looking for your niche. Like, I think that when you become a coach or otherwise, like, I think you need to let it come to you. And I think it will in the right moment. And I know that sounds so like granola, but it's true because all of those things that you're doing are leading you somewhere. And then you're all of a sudden going to land at it. And it's like, this is what it was supposed to be. You try on the different hats. We fail forward more often than not. And then here we are. So what is your blog if people wanted to go take a peek at it now? I know it hasn't been, active in a while, but it was fun to read.
It was fun to write, actually. So we eat glitter for breakfast. .com, and you can find it there. You can find me on Instagram as well. And yeah, I'm just kind of, this scares me, but one of my girls is helping me with the TikTok space as well, because she's
awesome.
Like, the skills you're making, they'd be so good for TikTok. You could get this mindfulness information out there, so I'm being brave this year. And I think of years oftentimes in school years in my brain, even though not calendar wise, because to me, the start of a new school year is just feels like a new start all the time. So it's kind of like my New Year's Eve today.
Okay, cool. Well, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
And good luck tomorrow in your class and with school starting too. When do your kids go back?
Tomorrow. All the things.
All of this tomorrow. Okay. Wow. So you've got some lunches to make, I'm sure.
That's the bane of my existence.
Yes. No. I hear you on that one. That's a whole other podcast. But yes, let's chat again soon. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And this was fun. It was a lot of fun. So thank you everybody for listening to the podcast. I'm so grateful to be sharing this with you. Please do me a favor, wherever you're listening, hit subscribe and send me a like. If you love what you're listening to, please share it with a friend. That is the greatest gift that you could give. Check out the blog at myinnerstruggle.com and follow me on Facebook and Instagram and join the Self-Love Club because that's where it's at. I am thinking of you and sending you love.